Do you believe that a premature, fragile child who was not expected to survive would one day change the entire world of science? That child was Isaac Newton. A fragile beginning. It was the winter of 1642, a cold Christmas night in England. Newton was born. Small, weak, so fragile that people believed he wouldn't survive his first few days. His father had already passed away before he was even born. Newton's childhood was far from easy. His mother remarried when he was still young, and Newton was left behind to live with his grandmother, a child growing up in loneliness. But in that loneliness, an extraordinary mind was quietly taking shape. While other children ran and played outside, Newton preferred to be alone. He read, he thought, and he built things. He created small mechanical models, windmills, carts, even a working water clock. Every coin he could save, Newton spent on tools, hammers, saws, pliers. Not to play, but to create. There were days when he became so absorbed in his work that he forgot to eat and even to sleep. For Newton, joy wasn't found in games, it was found in discovery. No one could have imagined that those strange little experiments were actually the beginning of one of the greatest minds in human history. A turning point. As he grew older, Isaac Newton was sent to study at a school near the town of Grantham. At first, he wasn't a standout student. Newton was quiet, reserved, and almost isolated from others. But then, things began to change. Instead of playing like other children, Newton spent his time studying. The more he studied, the more he improved. From an average student, he gradually became one of the top in his class. But just at that moment, life took a different turn. At the age of 14, his mother became a widow once again. She called Newton back home, not to continue his education, but to work on the farm. A future genius almost became a farmer. But there was one problem. Newton simply wasn't suited for that life. He had no interest in farming, no passion for working the land. While others worked in the fields, Newton would hide away in a corner to read. Once, he was assigned to watch over the farm. But instead of working, he brought a book with him and became so absorbed in reading. He forgot everything else. His mother slowly realized her son didn't belong there. Fortunately, Newton's former teachers saw it too. They persuaded his family to let him return to school, and that decision changed history. Newton went back to his studies, and this time he didn't just learn, he excelled. From a boy once seen as unfit, Newton became one of the most outstanding students. No one knew at the time that allowing him to return to school would pave the way for a scientific revolution that would change the world forever. The Annus Mirabilis. At the age of 18, Isaac Newton arrived at the University of Cambridge, more specifically, Trinity College. He wasn't wealthy. He had no money. To afford his education, Newton had to work for the professors, serving meals, doing small tasks every day. But in return, he gained something far more valuable: knowledge. At the time, Cambridge's curriculum was still very classical, based on old philosophies. But Newton didn't stop there. He taught himself read new ideas, especially the works of Galilei, and Johannes Kepler. And then, a major event changed everything. In 1665, the plague spread across England. Schools were shut down. Cities fell into chaos. Newton was forced to leave Cambridge and return home. It seemed like a setback, but in reality, it became the most important period of his life. In the quiet of the countryside, no classes, no professors, no pressure. There was only a brilliant mind. And during that time, Newton achieved something few could ever imagine. He laid the foundations for calculus, the law of universal gravitation, and the nature of light. 3 fields, 3 revolutions, all within just a few years. This period is now known as Annus Mirabilis, the Year of Wonders. There is a famous story. You may have heard it before. One day, Newton sat beneath a tree. Suddenly, an apple fell to the ground. Most people wouldn't think twice, but Newton was different. He asked, "Why does the apple always fall down and not up?" That simple question led to one of the greatest laws in history, the law of universal gravitation. Not only do apples fall, the moon is also falling, the planets too. Everything is pulled by an invisible force. One idea that explained the motion of the entire universe. And from that moment on, science was never the same again. Genius, conflict, and power. After those explosive years in the countryside, Isaac Newton returned to Cambridge. But there was something unusual. He didn't publish his discoveries right away. For many years, Newton kept everything to himself until another name appeared, Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, a German mathematician. He published a new mathematical method, calculus, and almost instantly, all of Europe took notice. But to Newton, this wasn't new. He claimed, "I had already developed this years ago." And just like that, one of the greatest disputes in the history of mathematics began. Who was the true inventor, Newton or Leibniz? 2 sides formed. England supported Newton. Continental Europe backed Leibniz. The conflict dragged on, intense, personal, to the point where science was no longer just science. It became a battle of reputation. Today, many believe that both men discovered calculus independently, but at the time, Newton came out on top. Not just in the argument, but in power. In 1687, Newton published his greatest work, Principia, Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy, a book that laid the foundation for classical mechanics. It completely changed how humans understand the world. In it, he introduced 3 laws of motion, explaining force, motion, and even the universe itself. From a lonely boy, Newton had become the leading figure in science. But he didn't stop there. Newton stepped into politics. He became a member of the English Parliament. Later, he took on a very unusual role, Warden of the Royal Mint. And there, he did something unexpected. Newton hunted criminals. He went undercover, visited taverns, gathered evidence, The result? Counterfeiters were captured. A scientist acting like a detective, Newton's fame kept growing. In 1705, he was knighted, becoming Sir Isaac Newton, a rare honor for a scientist. From that moment on, Newton was no longer just a genius. He became a symbol, the legacy of a genius. In the final years of his life, Isaac Newton was no longer the lonely young man he once was. He had become a living legend. He served as president of the Royal Society, one of the most prestigious positions in the scientific world. His name was respected across the entire nation. But behind that glory was still a quiet, reserved man. Newton was never someone who enjoyed noise or attention. He lived simply, had few friends, spoke little. And there was something many people didn't know. His greatest passion was not science. It was the Bible. He spent a great deal of time studying religion, writing books, and analyzing prophecies. In 1727, Newton passed away at the age of 84, but his death was not the end. He was buried at Westminster Abbey, a resting place reserved for the greatest figures in England. People say that he surpassed all other geniuses, and that was no exaggeration, because what Newton left behind was not just formulas, not just laws, but a new way for humanity to understand the world. From the motion of a tiny object to the orbits of planets, all of it bears his mark. 3 centuries have passed, yet modern science still stands on the foundation he built. A premature baby who nearly didn't survive became the man who explained the motion of the universe. Sometimes, genius doesn't begin with superiority. It begins with a very simple question: why? And that question changed the world. Thank you for watching. If you found this content helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe to support the channel.